So Twitch already heard this once because I'm having audio problems. If there's any crackles here, I do apologize. We're still trying to work them out. There's one bug that needs to be fixed, and I think I can... all the crackles go away. But anyway, I was told I absolutely have to watch this, and considering I never played Evo yet, because I've been just way too busy, I have very much an interest in Star Citizen Live All About 317, because I don't know a lot about it. So maybe some questions that get asked can give me a little bit more insight in what 317 is going to be like. In my video yesterday that we talked about ISC and just in general about like how I feel about Star Citizen, I'm very excited for the future, but the present and 317 and probably more excited for 318, like actually excited to play it. But a lot of these patches, it's like all the pieces are being placed on the board for the puzzle, but they haven't quite been connected yet. So it's kind of frustrating. But all right, let's go into a Star Citizen Live All About 317.
I'm recording.
You are recording. So am I. Hey.
Star Citizen Not So Live, starring Jared Huckabee and Todd Pappy, will begin in just a moment.
Oh, it was pre-recorded. Maybe Jared's getting ready for his trip, I guess.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Star Citizen Live. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee. Unlike most Star Citizen Lives, this week's show is pre-recorded. As happens sometimes in life, schedules come into conflict. We're required to be in other places at the times when we want to do things and everything. So in order to bring you this week's show without having to postpone and reschedule to another week.
Why so easy? I don't know. His lights are pretty bright in the back. That could be why.
We opted to record this a little bit earlier and replay it for you. So
does anybody have a problem with it being pre-recorded? Does anyone have a problem with it being really polished and like explaining things exactly the way you want to? And if you didn't like exactly what you said, you could probably repeat yourself. Not me.
Welcome to Star Citizen Almost Live.
Oh, thank you, Mark.
Jared Huckabee and Todd Pappy. Hi, Todd.
Hello. Hello.
We're gonna have to I'll put a little thing at the bottom, like previously recorded. Maybe we'll see if that goes through at the bottom. Todd, because everybody's show is somebody's first show, tell them who you are, what you do for Star Citizen.
I'm Todd Pappy, Star Citizen
he's working on
Live Game Director. Basically what
Yo, nice shirt, Todd. Thanks, dude.
that means is
Appreciate the support.
Working with Tony and Chris and working on PU and or the persistent universe side of it, and building out different gameplay, different content, and making sure that everything that goes into the game feels good, looks good.
And compliment you on your Salty Crew shirt.
Thank you.
We're going to have a question about fishing. We're going to have at least one question about fishing, I promise.
Yeah.
All right, so today's show is all about Alpha 317. So as we usually do, we put up a thread up in Spectrum to collect questions.
That is
a lot of folks
a 480p webcam, dude. That is a 1080p webcam. You're just used to watching streams now where most people use actual real cameras. So.
Questions had less to do with 317 and more about the long-term future of Star Citizen. Again, I'm going to remind folks that today's focus is we're going to try to keep it to the stuff of 317. We might dip out of 317 here and there, but for the most part, we're going to try to stay with our upcoming patch. To that end, let's just jump into the questions, Todd. Right off the bat, one of the biggest news, one of the biggest features of all 317 was finally having a keybind for calling the ATC.
Yes.
Some folks called it the greatest feature in Star Citizen history. Some folks called it what the hell took so long. This question says, how will the Hail ATC button deal with multiple ATCs being in range? New Babbage International Spaceport, the ground vehicle entrance, the Platinum Bay at the Commons, for example. Will it hail the closest one, or will it hail all two or three at the same time? How does this work?
So right now I'll hail the closest one. If we need to adjust it in the future to actually cycle through multiple ones so you can, tap it, we'll look at that. But right now we're going to go out with it just calling the closest one.
Okay. And what took so long?
I don't know. Like, I mean, just from a new player experience standpoint, like this will help help a lot.
What took so long is the last 3 years, they didn't give a shit about the player experience. Zero shits. And probably rightfully so, because you have to slam features into this game or it is going to be terrible. So, slam features away. And they still have to do that. But they're at a point where the player's experience matters a lot more because people seem actually interested in playing the game nowadays instead of like experiencing the planets or whatever, right? So, yeah, it's time to start doing these things.
Let's see. One of the big features of 317 is refueling. This next question says, is there going to be a fuel quantity rebalance for ships in 317 to make refueling necessary and to force more planning, or are current fuel tank values going to be left as is for testing, similar to how medical gameplay is useful but not mandatory?
It will be rebalanced. Now, the sweet spot that we're going to be looking for is like how often do you actually need to refuel? Like, we don't want it to be like you have to refuel every 15 minutes or every.
I feel like there's no way to know the sweet spot until you have. There is no sweet spot, right? Because like Pyro is a different system than Stanton. So the sweet spot requires like, I think, a lot more to be happening in the game. But I mean, the sweet spot for now would be the sweet spot for now, and then you balance from there later. Maybe, I don't know.
Every 20 minutes, like it should be that it takes longer. It's not something that you go through or have to think about every single, ideally hour. So my sweet spot, I think, is basically between an hour and a half and 2 hours that you need to be thinking about it. That's just from straight flying. Now, obviously, that'll depend on what ship you use, how you fly it, so on and so forth. And then also
quantum drive.
If we're talking about quantum fuel, then it also depends on how far you're jumping, where you're jumping to, so on and so forth. So, like, I think that this is
okay. So originally he was talking just hydrogen fuel, and I feel like it's a lot quicker than that with a lot of ships. Like combat ships run out of fuel really quick.
We are doing a rebalance, for it. But again, I think this will be our initial stab, and then from there we'll do tweaks and tuning, as it goes. And it might be that we're hitting very specific ships afterwards, or it might be, we just do a kind of general rebalance as well.
I think it's really important because we have gained so many new players.
Oh, here we go.
Over the last year and stuff. Folks who it may be easy to forget, or some folks may have never been made aware. Our live environment is still an alpha testing environment, so we are going to use that opportunity. However, this goes out when 317 drops, whatever the rate is when it drops. It is very likely to change, to be adjusted, as Todd said, either on an individual ship basis or across the board. We're going to use this opportunity.
I just don't understand why, if you have two environments, why the live environment needs to still be considered like very much a testing environment. Like, if you have a PTU, why are we not just testing there and going, okay, yes, it is a test, it is a gather feedback, it is a gather information build, but there shouldn't be that much tweaking going on in live. That's just how I feel. Like, live should be live. Yes, the next patch for live should update whatever, was in the last patch for live, but testing in live just seems weird to me now. Like, it's starting to become an actual game, and the live environment should be the live environment, and the testing environment should be where you're like, yo, let's try something over here and see how that goes.
Opportunity to find that sweet spot.
Even when it's in
I could
PTU. So
absolutely be
we're
wrong.
doing initial passes, and
Right.
then we're doing adjustments, and then from there, once it goes live, then I'm sure we'll be doing other adjustments for any other subsequent patches that we have. So
Yeah.
if we see any outliers or anything there that needs to be wrangled in,
No stealth,
we will go in
unfortunately.
and fix it.
But most companies, that's not the case either.
The Hull A is coming online with 317. With the Hull A needing to be in expanded mode to carry cargo, has the issue of ships resetting their transformation upon logging out or in from the ship bed been fixed? Or will you log in to find that all of your cargo has been sheared off because it defaulted to the compact position?
So as of today, which is March 17th, I was going to say 317. But is it 17th or 16th? 17th. 17th. Yeah.
We were talking about
So
317 on 317.
yeah, very good.
That's pretty interesting.
That there was a possible fix for the code that went in today. So basically, when we ship it, it should be solid.
And I know this is a more ship related question, but will we be able to trigger the transformation at will? I know a lot of time the transformations were linked to the landing gear and stuff like that. Do you know if?
Actually, I don't know. That's something I would have to ask John about and how that triggers. But I mean, I'm assuming it's when we're going into different states.
Okay.
So just like VTOL or landing gear, so on and so forth. So
I never knew. I did know it, but it never registered that when you log out in the bed, your ship's landing gear is usually up when you come back, right? I never recognized that, and yeah, so it goes to like a different state. So glad they got that fixed. That's
big
cool.
feature coming into 317 is the ability to sell stuff from our inventories. This question says, can armor and weapons obtained from the pledge store be sold, or is it blacklisted to prevent people from abusing character resets to continuously resell armor and weapons?
Anything that's web enabled or web entitled can't be sold. If something actually is sold, then that's a bug and we actually need to fix it. But when we last tested it, it worked that way. So anything that was, web entitled to armor or FPS weapons.
Ships better be that way too. But at the same time, you can buy things on. You could buy money on the website too. Also, is Todd's face not an emote? Like, is this not an emote face? Holy crap.
Shouldn't be able to be sold.
Gotcha.
I don't know what it would be, but that is an emote.
This question came up quite a bit. Will there be an inventory wipe since the selling feature is coming and loot is updating?
Right now, we're not planning on it, or at least we haven't had those initial talks.
I feel like there needs to be.
Again, for us, now that we've got persistence and everything, we're trying to, it sounds horrible, we're trying to wipe less, and from there, we go in and just try to let it live and let it lie and see how it affects the economy. But obviously, if there's any sort of outliers or we see any sort of exploits or anything like that, then we'll go in and fix that.
Buddy, here's the exploit. Buy or loot everything now. Store it all in your inventory. And sell it all in 317. Everything in your inventory, just sell in 317. And just gather now. Now, the most valuable things, who knows? They may not be in the loot container now, but yeah, I mean, that seems like a pretty big exploit. But again, it doesn't matter. The money doesn't matter. But if they're gathering feedback on what people are doing and how much people are selling in 317, you're gonna get owned on this one a little bit.
Todd Pappy trying to wipe less. You heard it here first, folks.
It is too soon for the next wipe, though, for sure.
This is why this is the only place that would hire me. Let's see. Refueling gameplay. Is there only one type of hydrogen and one type of quantum travel fuel for 317?
Yeah, for right now, it's just one. We'll be looking into grades of fuel later on. Obviously, that to me ties more into like when we start getting into refining gameplay and when you're able to basically concoct your own gas types and everything like that. So, but basically, if I remember correctly, like, we're just talking about doing some minor adjustments. So, let's say it was a fuel grade of 98 versus 95. Okay, well, then that just means, if you're putting in cheaper gas, then wear and tear increases, other options increase. Maybe you're not getting the same boost. So we have all the numbers and all the factors that we need to go in and adjust. We have those available to us. So then it's just once we put in the hooks to have these different gas types, then this will allow us to start messing with that.
Since mining was first
not a now
introduced,
thing.
we've seen mining evolve quite a bit with additional iterations, more features.
Oof. Oh God, here we go. I'm about to lose it, aren't I? All right, I gotta turn the fan on. I'm already getting hot. Mining makes me so mad right now.
More side features that accent it and stuff like this. Can we expect something similar with refueling, that it will continue to evolve?
No, actually, not in the short term. So in the short term, basically that team is finishing off resource management, which is really the power gameplay that we need to basically get the engineering gameplay in ships, as well as making sure that our environments and ships feel alive and can be taken down in different ways, so it doesn't always end with the ship actually blowing up. And then that team is also working on life support and also working on salvage right now. So those are their main focuses. With refueling, this was really to get us prepped for pyro. And so, like with pyro, we won't have the same kind of infrastructure, when the way that we're building the solar system, because it's more gang run, as well as places will be abandoned or run down. So this is actually us prepping for this, so that if you need fuel and pyro, you at least can find a place that might sell you fuel, or they can come out and do it. Obviously, there's other gameplay that could be happening there, meaning some other people show up and with the nefarious intent. So, but yeah, from this standpoint, right now, we'll get this iteration out, and then we'll move on to other things.
He never mentioned mining once, really, there, but this is the problem. This is the scam. This is the scam right here. This is the thing that frustrates me. One team is essentially doing everything. The team that did mining is the team that's doing salvage, is the team that's doing the engineering gameplay, is the team that's doing the refueling. They're all the same. It's all one team, because everyone is on Squadron 42. And that team left mining in a state that it does not exist when it comes to multi-crew. Multi-crew mining is non-existent. People are riding moles and riding them solo. Because, and even if they don't ride them solo, you do not need more than 2 lasers, because you just left mining in a state that is incomplete. And it's not their fault necessarily, right? I'm not going to blame the team. I'm going to blame the management of the game overall, and the focus outside of Star Citizen, the PU, the game, and the focus on Squadron 42. That's what's at fault here, and it's justifiable. It's understandable. They have to get this game out, but it just shows you exactly where the priority is. But when I say this is the scam, where's all the money coming from? Where's all the questions? What are all the questions about? What are people? Oh man, I can't wait for refueling. Oh, I can't wait for the cargo refactor. All these things, they're being worked on by two teams. Two. That's it. 700-person company. 2 teams are the ones that are making your gameplay. Not a good situation for us, guys. It's not. It's a bad situation for us.
The next follow-up question touched on what you just said here. So are we actively working on a balance pass for all ships regarding QT travel distances, fuel tank capacities, fuel scoops, all that good stuff?
Yeah, and in fact, a lot of the ships that weren't supposed to have fuel scoops, because we didn't have a way to constantly refuel them or refuel them out in the middle of nowhere. Now those fuel scoops are going away, and then the rebalancing is happening as well. So again, at least in Ibicati, once they can actually play it, then they should be able to see those numbers. And then obviously once we go wave 1 through 4, then they should be able to start seeing the effects of it as well.
There's 4 waves?
I
thought there was basically
Will the
2.
ships that came out in previous patches be in in-game stores? There were always ships added in one patch available in the in-game shops in the next patch, but currently we have a bunch of ships from 3.15 that cannot be bought in the game.
Yeah, so basically the Cyclone the Cyclone MT and the 72 Archimedes were added, and they'll be in 3.17. The Hover Quad and Cutlass Steel will be done for 3.18 at the latest.
Okay. What would you consider the top 3?
Is the Ares able to be purchased in game? Yeah, and the 400i. What about those? Is it because they're actually meta and you want to sell them? Like, I don't...
Milestones or achievements in Alpha 3.17?
This isn't a video game, dude. This is literally a funding drive for Squadron 42.
For me, selling. So this allows us to... Because
and the A2, yeah.
Before
at least
now,
we
can go out, we can have, missions, find stuff, collect stuff with loot. Now you can actually sell stuff. Then refueling is a big one for us, just because I view that more as a minor career, but it is still a career nonetheless. Then there was, these two are kind of side by side, but there was some tech that was done for like the scheduling and automation support for dynamic events. So before,
I think the raft is
we always had to trigger this, by hand. So now this helps us out, and it's really on the back end. It's not really player facing. And then, at least from a visual standpoint, and making our planets feel alive. The stuff that Will did with rivers and same with the planet team stuff. So that's, I know it's 4, but those are the 3 big ones, or the four big ones for me.
Hey, I'm sure nobody is more happy than Eric Green to not have to sit there and trigger these dynamic events manually anymore. Shout out to Eric Green.
So do you got Eric Green is Proxys, guys? He manually triggered every single one of the events.
With refueling coming to 3.17, will we see any NPC missions that involve this type of gameplay?
Not for this release. I mean, considering right now we're still getting the feature. We're basically finalizing the feature right now. Like, we're putting the finishing touches on it, and then with a lot of the AI focus being on S42 right now. Like, this is one of the things where, with our kind of adjustment more towards S42 focus and getting the future teams working towards that stuff. And with S42, they need, a lot of different things that we need, meaning like, planetary nav mesh, or AI, or basically AI flying in, landing on planets, reinforcements coming off, these types of things that are a little bit more combat focused. So that's really where a lot of their energy is going into. If we do this, it would be one of our feature teams on the PU, helping to build up those behaviors and working that out. But right now, it's not planned.
I'm glad you touched on that. Let's jump one of these questions up here. But from the chat, from the thread here, we've talked a bit already. People know who have followed the roadmap. They know who they followed the monthly reports or Rich Tyber appearing on this show in the past. Our core gameplay pillar and some of the other teams have moved into I say Squadron 42 first focus. It's not that they're not making stuff for the PU.
When we say core gameplay, what we're talking about is player systems. So like,
FPS systems, right? Because that's only what Richard Tyrer does. But like core gameplay, like the core of the game is spaceships as well. So it's again a horrible naming scheme that CIG has provided us with yet again. So when you hear the core gameplay pillar team, you're like, oh shit, that's everything that's the core gameplay, and it's not.
PS systems, and that's what we call our core team.
So this question, and you can expand on that when we talk about this here, goes, have you noticed much of an impact with the gameplay pillars moving to, this is the gameplay pillars, but the core gameplay pillar moving to Squadron 42? From your vantage point, how has this affected the year's schedule and content cadence?
A little
really
bit.
Good question.
I mean, right now we're in the middle of the adjustment. So, Rich and I talk about it constantly, and any sort of feature that like the core teams are working towards are basically they're going through and they're working out how does S42, how does this work with S42, and then from there, if we need to take it and put it and bring it to the PU, then we'll go in and we'll actually take it and adjust it and get it working and
like you said, we're in that middle part.
Either adds, what we feel
where
like
they're working on it, but we haven't gotten
Star Citizen side, to it, or we'll take it, just as is. But since they're going through and getting it to what they would consider alpha state for S42, and then it just trickles down, like
an alpha state.
That's fine.
For S42.
It just might be that when they're not really dealing with the same constraints that we deal with right now. So basically, when we go through and we're doing this, we've got go no goes in the middle of the quarter, and so that's when we do our branching and everything. They're just working, and this is really kind of how traditional game development would work, versus building the train at while you're on the track,
laying the tracks while you're
exactly. So basically we're they're just building, and then from there, it depending on where it comes in, that's when it'll drop to us, and they'll do their integrations, they'll go into game dev, and then from there we'll be able to take it and run with it. So it just depends on when it comes in the quarter, and then how much work needs to be done on it. So
okay, so I'm gonna speak out loud to try and say it out loud to myself to see if I understand it correctly. In chat, you let me know if I do. Because Star Citizen has this quarterly releases, and they have their go no goes in the middle of the quarter. If the gameplay that is being worked on Squadron 42 happens to get integrated into game dev after the go no go, they have to wait until the next quarter, and then it all depends even more on how much extra work they need to do to bring it in to Star Citizen, since it's just in an alpha state and it's only under the umbrella of what is needed for Squadron 42 and not what may be needed for Star Citizen. I think I understand that correctly, and that to me sounds like it's going to be a while before we see anything beneficial from that. But we were told, this is the most important thing in case this is the first time you guys are hearing about this, when a key team moved from Star Citizen to Squadron 42. That's the FPS team, the people who did your eating, your drinking, hot, cold, injuries, medical. That was that team, okay? When they moved from Star Citizen to Squadron 42, what we were told was that everything that they're working on now will be worked on with the intention of putting it in a polished state in Squadron 42. It's going to work for a video game, right? And then they're going to come back and say, hey, Star Citizen designers, these are how you could use it. All right? These are how you can make missions for it. This is how it works. Here you go. The world is your oyster. Go have fun with this. So that is what is supposed to happen. That is, from what I understand, Todd Pappy saying is that the team has moved over to Squadron 42, but nothing has shifted back. Like, hey, here's some gameplay stuff for you guys. Go have fun with it. They haven't done that transition yet to give us anything. And if they have, maybe they're still working on it, and it's taking a while. So,
but we do. I mean, not all teams have gone over there. Like we still have a very large content team that works on the PU side, so in the EU as well as in Montreal. And then we also have 3 different feature teams that still work on PU specific features in the EU as well as in the US. So it's not like everything has stopped on PU to go work on S42. It's
it clearly
stuff's
hasn't.
still happening for PU. It's just that any of these core things that were needed for S42 first go there first, and then come down to us.
It's just a rearrangement of what's always happened. It used to be that it worked
People
for
talk.
PU and then it was adapted for Squadron. Now it's just worked for Squadron and then it'll be adapted for the PU.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
It's just we just flipped the waterfall.
Yeah, and it's not a bad thing, in order to actually get that game out, and frankly, I think all the teams and even I have
This is a really good point from chat. From Meyer01. The problem I see is that the features won't have any player feedback before getting into that polished state, which makes me nervous. Yeah, that's a little bit. I don't think our feedback is that great anyway. But the issue that I have is you see these devs put things into this game, and it is so clear they have no understanding of how any of us play, right? And yeah, that's going to be
outside view, but I think the
Gonna be
teams
rough.
there have been making great progress and have really felt that switch. And just like when it was on PU, like we felt that instant. It's basically like in 4-wheel drive versus 2-wheel drive, and you're stuck in the mud. So like you feel that instant. All right, go. Everybody's focused on this. Everybody's pushing. So I think it's been a great thing to happen for that team and also for the company in order to get that out.
Yeah, and it'll be a good thing for the PU once we get past this transition period. Ideally, the idea is, and we'll, as always, we'll see if this pans out. But the idea is that these features
I'll believe it when
will
I see
then
it.
come into
I hope
PU
they're right though.
baked a little
they
more.
will. Well, yeah, a little bit more baked versus half baked. But like there's a lot of different things that S42 needs, we need, but there were certain things that we're in complete opposite, needs. So, for example, like I feel like we need careers and we need to be pushing towards these things. Versus
Yes.
Rich is like, no, I need this, for S42, and so like it's just those types of fights were always happening behind the scenes. And then, Chris would come in and be like, no, I think this is the priority. And you do those calls. But now, before it was definitely, I think, more PU focused, but now it's like, no, this is S42. Todd, you don't get to have this, or Tony, you don't get to have this. And
Right away.
We right away, but versus like we want it now, and we're a little bit like Veruca Salt, but for us it allows us to, we're still getting it. It's just we're not getting it instantly, and so.
But and more importantly, you should get it in a more polished state, is what they argued, and I hope that that's the case. That, again, I think Jared said it perfectly. We don't know until it happens, right? And I'm glad Jared said that, is like, this is the hope. Because a lot of the times they say, this is what's going to happen. And I'm glad for Jared that he jumped in there and was like, you know, we'll see what happens with this, but this is what we think is going to happen. And I hope they get it, whatever these things are, that they are in a more polished state. I forgot what some of them were. I think it was like, it all seemed like kind of minor stuff. Maybe I would assume some medical improvements are probably there, and I would assume it's like things like climbing and like player sliding and like, you know, FPS crap.
It just requires a little bit more patience, and that's not why I'm wearing the Salty Crew shirt. So.
And I also want to be clear before it gets quoted out of context. When you say we need more patience, you're talking about you and your teams need more patience. Just
well, so do we.
Well, no, it's really more me, you know. So, like, you know, just
we do too. Listen, I am one of the least patient people when it comes to this. But if you can't open your eyes and see how far away we are from anything remotely finished, it's very obvious that we need a little bit more patience, okay? We all do. And I know we've already been patient for a very long time, but guess what? If you look around, you know you're going to have to be a little bit more patient for a lot longer, right? Just open your eyes and you'll see. But the thing for me is I can be a little bit more patient if you put a little bit more focus in making the experience a little bit better in the game, right? If I can play the game in a way that I could, you know, make progress and things like that. Like the things that I want. I'm just one person. Those are the things I want. They'll be very different from the things that other people want. But for me, that's what I would need. I could be super patient with a very unfinished Star Citizen, because a finished Star Citizen is this very grand, great thing that, you know, none of us even really know what it is. The current experience, I think, could be a little bit better, and if it was, I'd have a lot easier time being patient, right? And it just comes down to, like, let's see what server meshing does, let's see what you know, kind of performance improvements and bug fixes and reputation and selling, let's see how all this stuff pans out, and how, like, we gotta have an economy sooner or later. Like, you know, these things need to start happening, and I really hope they get a lot of these things kind of hooked up and connected to each other this year, and then it might be a lot easier for the next couple of years to be patient as they build Star Citizen the universe, Star Citizen the like grander experience.
just because,
you know?
again,
I could have fun in one system.
Like, since
gotta be
Tony and
fun.
I are the driving forces on this, we have to be pushing, and so it's always, you know, I want, like, we're the players, you know, and we're basically wearing little Timmy's hats or whatever of the players
please,
out
sir,
there, and saying,
can I have some more?
yeah, and saying, you know, I want this, and, you know, I want it now, and so then then the teams are like, well, you can have this, but in this time, you know, so. And then it's just us having those discussions.
And then add 3 months to that time.
This is where I'm going to take a minute to let me push the button here. This is where I'm going to take a minute to entreat those folks who are watching the show and writing up summaries and going to Reddit and making, or Spectrum or wherever, and making posts about this or that, to please watch and rewatch and re-listen to that entire thing in context. Todd is being very open and being very candid about this change with you, and we absolutely appreciate him. And I entreat you to, when you talk about this online, to include all of the context and not to just take one line or half of one line and go alarmist with it somewhere else.
I mean, the work is being done.
You and me.
What alarmist would you get from this?
The work is being done, you know, and
it must be because I just listened to the whole thing. But what alarmist can you get from this, from what he said? Like, I think it's super obvious that there's only so many things that he could get. What would you get like? Why would we be alarmed about anything that he said there? Hey, I want everything. I want it now. But it's not possible. It's nothing that Jared hasn't said before. I don't get it. He's generalizing about other Spectrum drama. I don't know. I think he's saying about just what. I don't know. Like, I think I'm one of the people who don't really clip anything down too much.
Right now,
so.
We're getting things that are funneling into the PU now, like some fixes or those types of things. And then we'll have more next quarter, and then we'll have more than the following quarter.
Right.
So, like,
but you'll have more things to fix every quarter
adjustment,
too.
in the middle of that transition. It's just a little bit slower now, and we know that it will speed up as time goes on.
I don't feel alarmist about anything.
The flip side of that, next question, with the new roadmap going for more complete gameplay rather than earlier on the roadmap and thus less content per patch, can we expect more quality of life improvements?
That's an easy yes.
Well, I guess I'm going to give you the kind of the generic answer for that. I mean, we're constantly trying to improve the quality of life. I mean, it's something that we've been trying to do for multiple patches multiple years, and it's always dependent on what the team is doing, meaning because we have something like 50 different feature teams, and content teams. It really depends on what each team is doing, and like if they're slammed on some sort of feature or release, or if they're
it's the stupidest question of all time, dude.
Just building something, then it's a lot easier for them to go in and fix.
Like, how do you get quality of life in a server that runs at fucking 3 FPS? Right? Like there is no quality of life. Like, no matter what you do, the quality of life is going to be absolute dog shit until we get a server that runs at a decent frame rate. Because no matter what you do to fix certain bugs, you're still always going to be hampered by, the server being like a fucking Texas Instruments calculator, dude. It'll never be good, and it'll never feel good until then. And that's why everybody hinges everything on server meshing in hopes that, everything will get better then. I don't think that'll be the case, but at least it'll uncover what could be improved, and that's when I think the real quality of life will happen. But yeah, I mean, I think like what some people are saying in chat, like quality of life could be UI, quality of life could be other things. Of course that's true. But I think the overall Star Citizen experience, and I feel like that's where that question is coming from, will never be where everybody wants it to be until the server can handle the content that's in the game, right? So that's why everybody's hinging everything on meshing, in hopes that, like, with improved server performance, it'll uncover issues that can be resolved, and quality of life will probably ramp up quite a bit, we hope. But we still don't even know if this static server meshing is even going to resolve any of the server-related issues. We have no idea until we see it.
A fair amount of quality
as a
of
player,
life
I don't put any
and then
confidence
it also depends
in
on how complicated that quality
until it actually
of life
happens.
fix is. For example, like, we know the star map is broken. We know, and it's basically, but the star map is being worked on, and it's basically that team's number one priority for S42, and then from there it will come to us.
Okay.
So but there's things like that are more complicated, and we try to spot fix it as much as we possibly can.
That's great.
But part of that is just, we know that there's certain features that just need a full rework, and then, but again, it depends on kind of the quality of life. Like, we're focusing on, the ships and trying to go through, fix any sort of lighting issues, fixing any sort of vis area issues, anything like that. Like, we have our lists of stuff that needs to be done, and through every quarter, the teams are trying to go through and fix it. So
the one thing I noticed, though, if you ever look at the patch notes, there does seem to be a list, but what the teams seem to do, instead of hit the most important one for the players, they seem to hit the ones that are easiest to fix on the list. Yeah, I got a few hours today. Let me try and fix this, instead of really hitting the ones that are hurting the players the most. Have you ever noticed that? That's something I've noticed. Like, if you look at patch notes in the PTU, a lot of the fixes in the bug fix section are like these really like minute, like, fixed a replace me ball here, instead of like, I wonder if that guy could have been focusing on that really, really problematic one, like getting downed, and when you come back up, you're underground, We had that bug for, I don't know, 6 months, and we probably still do.
You've worked on multiple games here. Reworking a feature. Is this something normal that happens through any game development, or is this something unique because we're running a live environment in the middle of our development?
It depends on different things. So usually with normal game development, you really kind of get one shot at it, and you're working through it. And a lot of times, once you get to alpha, and you get the game all together, then you have those, malarkey just hit the fan moments, and look at and go, oh, this thing really needs to be cleaned up, or this thing needs to be rebuilt.
Yeah, they get that shit hits the fan right now.
Let's rebuild as fast as we possibly can, or we, duct tape it. Now, for us, we're in a very unique situation. There's certain things that were done a long time ago, and then now that we've got a bigger universe, it's being updated. Like, for example, the QT HUD and other things like that. Like, that to me is just switching it over to a different HUD, and fixing that, and that will fix a lot of the QT issues that we have. So from there, like, there's other things there that just either teams have other higher priorities that are needed for S42 or needed for PU that kind of get in the way of this stuff a lot of times. So, just because we are dealing with the live environment, and, when we are doing feature work, like before, it was, we've got 6 weeks on, and then kind of 6 weeks of bug fixing and trying to solidify things, and you're doing work, but at the same time you've got live must fixes or evocati must fixes or PTU must fixes that are coming in, plus quality of life. So like it's just a mixture of you're working on the feature, but then you're kind of it's a little bit of stutter stepping that's happening. So versus traditional game.
This sounds like a very much like a never-ending cycle of like, okay, get this feature done, dude. All right, here it is. It's okay, and then there's a bunch of fixes that you have to do outside of your feature, inside of your feature, in Evo, in PTU, on live, and then the feature is kind of shit, and then you move on to the next feature, but that last feature is still kind of shit, and you put that in and it's not that great, but you have to go back and fix the one that you were working on before, and then it's just constantly like you just continuously put in things that are broken and not working, and it's never good quality of life, is what it sounds like. That's a interesting way that he explained it. I wonder if that's actually true or if I'm taking it out of context at all. But it just seems like, it kind of makes sense for the experience that we have, is the features feel wildly incomplete.
Development, it's just...
And I don't expect them to be, like, game-ready complete, but I also don't expect us to not be able to stack certain things or, have a third-person UI like we do now in inventory and stuff. It's a horrible experience in a lot of ways, and a lot of these experiences shouldn't make it into the game the way they are. But if these people that are making the features are totally stuck doing all this other crap that they shouldn't have to do, if you just waited for the feature to be more polished before putting it in the game, yeah. But they have to hit these quarterly dates. I really don't think quarterly releases are a good thing anymore. I really haven't.
You plow on, you work. And,
having to fix the same bugs every patch, it's like, what
you really get to alpha, and a lot of times that's when you take you
just kind of hope it all works.
Yeah, exactly. And then from there, between alpha and beta and final, a lot of times that's when you're seeing a lot of what I would consider crunch, because a lot of times they're not in the state that you want it to be in, so therefore you have to go in and fix it in a very, very short time period. So, and that to me is the hard part.
All right. we had a little detour into the deep, more philosophical questions of game development. Let's get to something easy. What the hell's up with the coffee shop vendor? And of all the things that were prioritized, is it in preparation of something more substantial? It just seems like a reskinned bartender from where we're sitting.
It is. I mean, on the surface, it is. So basically, this was one of our junior designers' kind of first tasks. It was getting in and doing this, and this is kind of when the AI teams were shifting over towards us.
This is the perfect example of none of us understand game development, or they're not communicating it well to us. If they just said what Todd said here, I'd be like, oh, cool, I get it now. If it was just going, hey, we got this junior guy, we want to put him on an easy task, there you go. Like, why would any of us have a problem with this? But when you sensationalize and make this like multiple posts about a fucking coffee vendor, it seems like you're sensationalizing something when in reality it was just some plebs task to get acclimated with the game engine.
Come
on, guys,
basically
say
dealing
it.
with other features. So, excuse me, this guy and the AI team, or the content AI team, were working on this, and basically we're getting moved around and pushed around onto different things. So, but this was something that they were working on and cleaning up, and this is really how we deal with vendors. Is basically they will be different reskins of the bartender, but in reality, like where I wanted this thing to go more towards was the black market dealer, so
that would have
somebody
been better
that can
with
sell
selling
you something, because like at least for black markets, we don't feel it's right that all right, hey, you're fencing something to a kiosk versus somebody. It's missing that personal feeling. So that's really where it's heading. And there were some code changes that were done underneath, to basically move it towards it that way. But I can definitely see from an outside perspective of, yeah, this is a reskin, and in many ways it is.
And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't even look like a reskin. It looks like, you always hear Jared talking about priorities, right? And then if you just told us that this was a new person's task, but at the same time, the direction we really want to go into is this black market thing. So while he's reskinning this thing, we're having him add some features there that could make a black market dealer be a thing. Which, by the way, I believe in monthly reports like months and months and months ago, they had mentioned the black market dealer. Yeah, like, if you just communicate to us, we won't get upset. Like, you understand here, guys. I hope, Jared, I hope you see this at some point. I know you won't. Jake, I hope you see this. I know you won't. I hope somebody from the community, like the teams that communicate to us, see this. You realize what the problem here is. If you're just honest and don't try to paint things in a certain light, you're going to look a lot better than you do normally. Because when you try to paint things, we're not stupid, and we see it. It was so clear you're trying to paint the coffee vendor as something that it wasn't. And if you just said that it was a new person's task, and the plan here is to kind of, fit in these features to make something better and more great later that you will enjoy in a lot more like tactile way, like that's the way you share it with us, with honesty. What is so hard about that? Like, Todd just told us what it is. Why is he the one to tell us? And not the people who are literally paid to communicate. Why are they so bad at it? That's the thing I can't stand. Is we put money into this game, your salaries are paid, so you communicate to us. And if you're bad at communication, I don't understand it. It's what causes a lot of the frustration, right? Like, it's been happening for 10 years. And, like, just be honest, guys. Just be honest, and you'll have a lot better of an experience with the noisy people in your community.
It's an important. I brought it up not just because I thought it was funny and I like throwing you curveballs every once in a while, but again, this is the only place that'll hire me. But I think it's important. We don't always. When I say we, I mean the folks outside of game development. You know, I'm a fan of other games and stuff like this. We don't always see the context behind some of these decisions, and we often forget that you know. Video game development, Star Citizen, just like anything else, there's turnover. There's new people coming on board. There's old people leaving for other opportunities. And when these new people come on board, you don't just throw them down the well and be like, make server meshing happen. It's you start them on these.
You guys remember Montreal? Like, hey, go make this one derelict. Now look at them.
Smaller, you know, beginning tasks. Many times they have to learn the tools that we use. They have to learn the processes that we've developed and stuff like this. So a lot of times when
that was a whole team.
You see when backers see kind of a head scratcher, like this seems like a weird kind of side kind of thing like this, whether it's our game or some other game or whatever. Just keep in mind, there's always context.
I mean.
Yeah, it's your job to give the context. It's your job to give the context. In the monthly report, give the context. Give the context. That's literally your job. Why is Todd Pappy the one giving the context? I don't think it's Jared's job necessarily, but whoever is writing the monthly reports, wherever these things that come in first, like where everybody lost their mind about the bartender, I believe it was in Roadmap Roundup, give the context, Jake. You know, that's a part where if I was going to give feedback, that's where you can improve on something, is give the context. Don't just say there's context and not give it and say you're open development at the same time. Sorry, it doesn't make any sense to me. It just doesn't. Like,
there's... So, for example, like there's combat features that need to be worked on or focused on, or there's flight features that need to be worked on, focused on. Well, it's the same thing with social features. So, like, this is just something that, you know, whether it be a pizza vendor or a coffee vendor or any noodle vendor, like, there's just vendors in game that, you know, need to be worked on, need to be built out. Like, it was just that we chose this one first and then that's what we did. So
yeah, it's not a big deal, but
you know, in many ways this is just laying the groundwork for other things to come. But you know, for right now, a lot of that focus, again, the feature team and the tech team, most of their focus is shifted over towards S42. So it's really basically getting that stuff working, and most of theirs are going to be focusing on combat, you know, making sure that that's tight.
It's like the moist eyeballs thing, people. It's like people work on the things that they're here to work on.
Yeah, of course.
Let's get back into some more feature discussion here.
Of course, Jared. People are here to work on the things that they're here to work on. You just assume that the priority would be AI in any other way than a coffee vendor, because you didn't tell us that it was a new person that was coming in, right? Again, the context wasn't there, so how do you expect us to act? Dude, come on.
The prices of items that can be sold to vendors going to vary as more people sell said items, or is it going to be fixed prices for each and every item they find?
I think they said at ISC it's going to vary.
Right now it'll be fixed. In the future, we will be going through and adding variability based off of like wear and tear, how many you know, how many items that store actually has in its stock, so on and so forth. But like right now, it will be fixed.
Oh wow! So ISC
do you know if those items
like didn't lie, but didn't tell the truth? In ISC, they straight up were like, yeah, so when the inventory is high, it's going to be as lower than 50%. Again, I haven't played EVO, so I don't know. That's an interesting disconnect between ISC and SCL there.
Items go into the inventory to then be sold back to other players? Like if I sell up 500, med pens to a vendor, are they going to have 500 med pens to sell to other people now?
It might. I don't know how that because right now, like, I don't think it's an additive quantity on. I don't think it adds it up on top of it. I think it's basically like, all right, hey, we'll buy it and then kind of clean it out of the, like, just like for we have different things that interject into the economy and things that we use to pull out of the economy. So like, I think with this is just a way for us to pull stuff out of the economy right now.
Key term right now.
Yeah.
Are the Oh, I already did that one. With Rivers coming in 317, has there been any broader discussions recently or anything in development this year on what gameplay mechanics Rivers and Water in general players might see?
There's been talks. So, I mean, there's the dirt buildup or material buildup that happens, just in general. So like, you see it like with the frost on the armor, but we need to get frost on weapons. We need to get frost on backpacks, so on and so forth. So it would be the same thing that would happen here. Like you get mud buildup on ships or on your player. And then from there, we have talked about swimming. It's just right now, as swimming's not a huge focus for S42. Otherwise, we would have got it, sooner, than we are. And then from there, we're still focusing on basically filling out other core gameplay careers, versus doing, like fishing or that kind of stuff. So, even though I love fishing, but like I feel like we need core gameplay careers first before we start going in that road.
You just scooped my last question. Fine, whatever.
Imagine calling
any news
fishing
on the
not a
implementation
core
of
gameplay
quantum?
feature.
Now that selling items is around the corner, will the selling price? Well, I guess. Okay, so any news on the implementation of quantum? We'll leave it there.
Yeah. So this I talked to Tony about it today. So they're still planning on quantum in 317 to dictate the price of 3 commodities: repair, materials, quantum fuel, and hydrogen fuel, and where service beacons occur, and the price, and then 3 probability volume tags: piracy, security, and freighters, at about a dozen locations. So like that's the way that the first iteration of quantum will be put in, and then from there, again,
what dictates the price of fuel? Interesting. I wonder what's dictating the price of like quantum fuel. Is it how much quantum I refined and sold at Microtech or something?
every quarter we'll build on it and adjust it,
or is it all just the quanta and we're not really hooked into it yet? Maybe would be my guess.
Go from there.
So I'm sorry, did I mishear you? You're saying that quantum will be dictating the prices of those things in 317?
It's that, yes. So, but it'll be dictating the price for 3 commodities, not all the commodities, just 3 of them.
But so, I think that's news in and of itself. So
that is news.
Some
sure.
aspect of quantum will be driving stuff in 317.
That's the goal. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
How long until shopping kiosks are able to filter their stock more effectively so you can make better informed purchases? Is listing every single color of a particular piece of armor, for example, an efficient way to display them succinctly? Wow, the questions are... I'm into the questions this week.
Well, so for this one, first things first, we've done a complete rebalance of what's actually being sold in stores. And we've actually pulled out a lot of them, and it will be in loot containers now. So where we were getting like 20 or 30 armors that, had the same colors or different color variants, now you should see a much smaller stock. And then from there, We do know that there needs to be code reworks and adjustments to the actual UI. But right now we do currently have other what we view as other higher priorities to
sure.
get those
For
fixed.
sure,
But
there's higher priorities.
yeah, I have certain things there that, like even when you're buying ammo and sort of attachments, for the FPS weapons, remembering, okay, oh yeah, it's this FPS weapon that I need to buy the ammo for. Like, there's different ways that we can adjust it and make sure that it's more user friendly. It's just currently we have other higher priorities, for that team to be working on, like physicalized cargo and other stuff that
Yes.
Tony's working on.
Speaking of physicalized cargo, the ability to sell or even access stolen ship cargo. Anything you can tell us about that? Does that require the physical cargo refactor?
Yeah, it does require the physicalized cargo. So, once that gets going, then you should be able to interact with the payloads that are in the cargo area and be able to pick them up, adjust them, steal them, so on and so forth. So, like, and then also when you blow up ships,
Jumptown every day.
get rid of the 1A SU that pops out, and so now it'll be, the proper inventory actually pops out, and then you can hoover that up and go.
Are there any new? Is there any new mission content for Alpha 317?
Doubt it.
Maybe for a point patch, but for initial release, no. The teams are really focusing on getting what at least I call verbs out. Like obviously we've got deliver or attack, defend, so on and so forth, but we have a list of verbs, and so each time we're building one of those verbs, it takes us a little while to build up the tech that's needed for it.
What verbs are being worked
on? Also build
on?
up the first, modular iteration, and then from there being able to implement it into the locations. So right now we've got a team in Montreal working on, stuff that's we'll be showing, I think, pretty soon, in probably.
I think that's the executive building things. Okay.
One of our releases, and then obviously our teams right now in the EU are really focusing on getting Pyro working, getting other things built, and making sure that we're when we release Pyro, it's actually strong, and making sure that for our space stations, for
Fish is not
our
a verb.
outposts and everything like that, like there's things to do there.
Okay.
It's a noun. It can be a verb.
Is asteroid scanning getting fixed in 317?
We did do a fix for it. Now
it's two things.
We'll need to check and see if we need to do any other fixes, but basically some of that might need to wait until server meshing comes online. But we did do a fix.
Okay. Do you want to give us any kind of update on how server meshing is going? Is that even in your wheelhouse?
Like that?
That's not in my wheelhouse at all.
I didn't think so.
I
didn't think so. I tried, folks.
Yeah.
Let's see. Will players and/or NPCs be able to issue refuel beacons for owners of Starfarers to respond to at launch, or will that be added in subsequent releases?
Right now, it'll be in later releases. So it's something that we know we need to update, and we need to adjust, kind of the way we do our service beacons, at least from a UI standpoint first, and then from there we'll be able to add the refuel.
Okay. Let's talk about the desync improvements a bit. Folks who are playing Evocati right now are noticing some noticeable improvements to desync. I
love this bullshit, man. I'm not allowed to say anything. Yet it's all out in the open. I'm not allowed to say a fucking thing, but it's all out in the open. It's so stupid.
Personally holding back talking about it because, I tried to avoid being Lucy with the football in Peanuts. Yeah. Like, hey, look, it's better. And then people get excited about it, and then I end up yanking it away. I really tried to avoid that. since it's already out there and people are starting to ask about it right now, what can you tell us about what's currently happening, why it's happening, how it's happening?
So,
What do you
so
know?
How would I know?
So I,
'Cause
I
I
talked
know.
to Dave Colson about this today, and you wanted to make sure that I was very, very clear on this. So it's not, the issue is a desync in time, not in position. So basically, right now, the way it works is the more you move, the more it's wrong. Um, and this was really done to smooth out the movement of the ships and making sure that things aren't, just jittering all over the place. So what we've done is we've exchanged that there will be more time synchronized, but the ships might jitter a little bit more. So, and what will happen is we'll need to kind of see how bad the trade-off is, and
Okay.
see if this will really stick, or if we need to think of a different way of going. But no matter what, this will always be a continued effort, for us, as long as it's an issue, and feel it's an issue, and you guys feel it's an issue. And
Listen, if it doesn't work and it's not good, I'm glad they tried.
it's not something
We'll
that's
leave it at that.
this might not be the complete fix, but it's more in the right direction. So it might be that, in the future, it's kind of a mix between the position and the time, so you do get a little jitter, but that's something that, Dave and the team will be looking at and seeing how they can fix it even better. But right now, this is the thing that they wanted to try out and see if they can, if it feels pretty good, and then we go from there.
Yeah, it's we've all been pretty excited on this end since we first started seeing it in Evocati and stuff, and it's hard because I know, I'm talking with Tyler, I'm talking with
Yeah.
Jake, I'm talking with all like we want to run up to the top of the mountains and scream like, hey, how awesome
Yeah.
this is, but at the same time we know what the nature of game development is and stuff like this, and it may be good today, but then something happens tomorrow and stuff like this. So it's
Yeah, and I think there's so many other factors that come into play. Obviously, speed of your actual machine, speed of your internet connection, the server frame rate, so on and so forth. So like once we get into wider PTU, then that to me is really where the proof in the pudding happens, and once we see larger numbers on this, but yeah, I do think it's a step in the right direction.
yeah, cautious optimism is
Yeah.
what
Sure.
I recommend.
I'm
at
just
the
glad
moment.
they tried.
And then as far as the server machine stuff goes and stuff, I know folks have been asking for an update and stuff like this. I see it all in the questions for this. It is still ongoing. It is still proceeding as we stated. Basically, what you saw at CitizenCon still applies. What you saw in the wonderful Ask Me Anything follow-up Q&A the community team did afterwards still applies. All that stuff is still on track. It's just we're not at a point now where there's anything really new to tell you other than things are still proceeding
It's still on track.
how we said they would.
Yeah.
So
To the person who said, Mike, I think you're wrong about Pyro. I think that we are going to get it after CitizenCon. You can think all you want, right? You can think that way all you want, because I saw that in the chat earlier, but it doesn't matter until that is done. And until they update you the same way they're updating you on the desync thing, where they're excited about something and that something is actually making it into a build that we're going to use, there is no reason to ever think anything about Pyro. I'm setting my expectations very low for me. I don't care what, you can have your expectations. They are what they are. I don't give a shit about yours. My expectations are mine and my own, and that's it. And the reason I set them that way is because I don't want to get upset when the inevitable happens. And the idea is I just don't see it being a thing at the end of the year, because they said it would be at the end of the year, a year out or more, right? So
trust me, when we have
basically all the downstream teams, like we're still we're still working towards, those dates, and we're still, so we're still building. We're trying to make sure that everything is ready,
Yeah.
So do you understand what that means, guys? All the downstream teams are working on it. That's like every team is making sure that their features will be able to be integrated with server meshing. The whole game has to be readjusted for the new way things are working. Specifically in the not roadmap roundup, monthly report, you see it's like transit systems and trains and things like that, right? That's what was one of the things that I saw that was like trying to be added to the server meshed environment.
So it really just comes down to that team working on it.
Yep. And then perhaps the most important thing I want to remind everybody, because I'm a fucking killjoy, part of my language. We'll blurb that. It's pre-recorded. We'll see if I remember to mute that. Is that it won't be a light switch. It's not going to be there's not going to be a day where server meshing is turned on and everything is better. Quite honestly, it's probably going to be a day where we turn it on and everything breaks, and then we'll have to fix it and adjust and stuff like this. But it will continue to be iterated on and refined and adjusted just like anything else. So manage some expectations, and let's hope I remember to go back and beep or mute that, because it's pretty.
I hope a lot of things break. I hope when the server starts working better that it uncovers a lot of issues that were always covered up by server crashes and just blame things that were always blamed on server tick rate that actually never were.
Pre-recorded.
There's no more excuses after that.
It was mentioned in ISC that
As you
rivers
should,
are a
Amadeus.
simple case of a few clicks and some tweaks. Why are we only getting one? Should we expect more with every patch, or will they go on the back burner now that we've got one?
Part of it is when the feature actually came in, because Will did the first one, so versus the Planet team doing it. So Will was basically working out the code, and then from there was other things that, from visual standpoint, that needed to be adjusted and worked out. And so there are plans to add them to Microtech and to add more to Microtech and add them to other planets that actually make sense. And so it was just that the Planet team was focusing on different things, and in reality, I think, the feature, we did the go no go for it, I want to say early February. So, for us, again, mid-February, that's when we cut things off and we say, okay, we're branching. So there was no other time for the teams to go in and adjust and do things.
Yeah. So to the last part,
I don't know, Black Sheep. I'm not a
do you
game
think we'll add more in subsequent patches, or are they going on the back burner?
No, we'll add more. So, I mean, as far as I know, it'll be something for 3.18, 3.19.
Do you know if it has a name? Does this one river have a name?
No.
I asked Will when we filmed, and he goes, I don't know. So I don't think it actually has a name.
We can call it the Will.
Crowdfund the
maybe
name.
We'll do a social media contest. I don't know. I'll talk to I'll talk to Dave.
Yeah.
We're wrapping up here.
Will McFace? I guess no, that doesn't work. So
River McRiverson.
River McWillface.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Is that what you were trying to say?
Yes. Except there was a stroke that happened.
Let's see. We're just about done. As live game director, what is it like to be in the position's shoes, to make critical decisions about what you can and will not, what can and will not make it into a release? How, as part of the head of the organization, does the feedback from the community affect your day-to-day professional outlook or environment? I'm just going to hit the button and let you go. Go ahead.
I guess for me, I have the title live game director, okay, but we've got multiple game directors within the company. So Tony, myself, Rich, Nick, so on and so forth. So basically, I think every director is responsible for their teams and making sure that their teams are doing the job to the best of their ability, and basically the features that come out are as good as they possibly can be. So when we go into these go no goes, it's Tony or Aaron or myself, and if it's one of my teams, I have the meetings before, and I make sure that it's ready to go. If it's not ready to go, then I tell Chris and Aaron why, and have those difficult discussions. But each team kind of they have a director associated with it, and so it's those teams doing that. So when we're going into go no goes, and I'm going in for a lot of other teams, then I'm just looking at it and making sure it's hitting what I think it needs to hit, from a player standpoint, the look and feel. um, have any of these edge cases been thought about? Like, how many, are there other features that need to be done associated with it? Have you, and how many bugs do we have left? What's the overall feel of it? Does it feel good, or is there a little bit of clunkiness to it? But a lot of times when we're going into those things, we expect the directors and we expect the leads and the POs that are working on it to be those initial, those initial people saying, yeah, we're happy with this. We're proud of putting this out. And then from there, it's a call that we make, in that.
There are a lot to be proud of.
So, like for Tony, like if he's looking at something, I trust
Maybe.
him to look at it and drive it home. And so when we're going into live meetings or live release meetings, he's there, he's present, he's looking at it and making sure that it's good. If we're talking about like AC or Star Marine or Tau stuff, then that's Sean. He's there. He's in those live release meetings, making sure
Did
it
he
looks
just
good.
say theaters of
And
war?
if there's any bugs need to be chased up or anything like that, he's calling it
Come
out.
on, dude!
And then I'm doing it for my features. So I am really kind of the point of contact. If things aren't looking or feeling good, and then I chase up those teams and figure out what we can do with production. And then that's really kind of my live game director role. And then other times it's just game director. Basically, we didn't want to have two SC game director positions. So like Tony's got the SC game director, and I've got the SC live game director. So there's that separation. But again, for Tony, he's focused more on the tech. I'm focused more on the look and the feel. And that's kind of how we play off of our roles. And then, as far as working with the community, and dealing with the community stuff, like this to me is golden. Like this is, a lot of times, with other games, you only get that feedback at the very, very end, and you're hoping and you're praying that, yeah, we did this right, and we hit it. And, I can guarantee you that basically every game director or every lead, when a review comes out, when their game goes gold and the reviews start coming out, like they're sweating bullets. You never know. And so this to me allows us to try it out and see what works, what doesn't work. And I work constantly with Bayer and the community team, Eric Green, basically our live production team, to look at the bugs that we have, to triage those, to go through, what's working, what's not working, what did players really gleam onto or grab a hold of, and then what isn't hitting home, as hard as we feel it should hit home. Like, and then we go back to those teams and we talk about it and we figure out how we can adjust it. But like that's the part that I like. I used to view, like in games, you've got you'll be working on something and then you do a focus test, and a lot of times you're bringing in people from the outside and you're sitting there watching them play the game. And I would I would view it as that's kind of where dreams go to die. Like you have a dream of, hey, hey, this is how this thing's going to play out and work, and then you watch people play it, and you're just like, oh man, you're just pulling out your hair. Like, why don't you?
It's the opposite now. They explain that it's going to be a certain way or whatever, and then our dreams go to die the second it's in the game. It's literally the opposite
This? Why
now.
can't you see this?
They kill our dreams.
And this is our way of focus testing. So like this to me is good for us. It's true. It's true feedback and honest feedback, and that to me will only go in. Sometimes it hurts, but sometimes you look at it, you're like, oh yeah, how did we not see that? But it just goes into making the game better. And that to me is what it's all about, is just making the game as good as it possibly can be.
The problem is like 99% of the feedback goes on a list of feedback of things that you're going to work on later, and it feels like they just like never get to it. And it like they always say like how great it is, but I feel like a lot of the feedback that we give is not always actioned. And then like even on bug fixes, man, like in the last few months, like the amount of bugs that we've reported just in my community would end up getting like ignored, and then fortunately we like I have some contact with like people in the community team where you could be like, yo, what's up with this, dude? Like, how is this still a problem? And then or I could like message Eric Green, right? Like those things, and be like, hey, do you know about this? Because this is like obviously game breaking, and this IC report got closed as if it was fixed. And then they would be like, oh yeah, okay, well that was mistakenly closed. They reopen it, and then they actually fix the thing. Like in the last few months, there's been a few like major bugs that were really, really problematic that were fixed because there's something breaking in the feedback loop sometimes. So as much as they say like, hey, it's so great, it's so great, it's so great, sometimes it feels like it's falling on deaf ears. And I feel like a lot of people at the community that don't have the advantages that I do or my community does, because definitely with Evocati we have some like direct integration with the members of Evocati and some of the developers, which is really, really nice. So we can like directly send an IC report to them and things like that through my Discord. And that's really helped out with things. And even just like general communication right to a developer is really nice. But not everybody gets to do that. And I feel like the overall Star Citizen community feels probably unheard on a lot of these things. And honestly, it's got to be pretty frustrating. So we hear all the time about how great it is, but it just seems like a lot of the feedback doesn't really get actioned. And a lot of the feedback is specifically on like, hey, man, there's like a major issue here, and that major issue sticks around for a long time.
How did we not know players were going to overdose other players in green zones? How did we possibly not know that was going to happen?
Exactly. But that to me is fun. It's interesting gameplay.
But you took it away.
Like, we never knew Jumptown 1 was going to be, so interesting. But like, it's immersive. Like this to me is fun and interesting. Like at least from a career standpoint, like this is so different than all the other stuff that I worked on in the past, and so every day is a new, we call it a new fire, but to put out, but like it's problem solving, and that to me is the fun part. Like I love building and problem solving with the team, and going through that experience. It's new, it's fresh, cool. And it's not for everybody, but like I love that challenge, and I like it when people tell me, well, you can't do that, and we say, F you, we're going to do it anyways.
It's one of the reasons we get along.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. We're at time, but I gotta ask: Are you sure wearing your Salty Crew shirt isn't like? Are you sure you're not trying to subtly hint that phishing is coming to Star Citizen?
No, it's something that, at least for me personally, it's super relaxing. My dad
Sam,
and I
great job
did
on
it when I
ISC
was younger,
yesterday, dude.
and then I do it with
good
my
to
kids
actually
when
see
I can. So
the
like
first time.
it's something that is super relaxing. And I went to Florida and I saw the shirt and I was like, all right, I got to get it.
So fishing in 318 then.
No.
319.
Keep on trying.
Keep all right. All right. I tried, everybody. Todd,
Nope.
thank you for being on the show with us this week.
Only if it's laser.
Folks, remember that Stella Fortuna. I think Stella Fortuna is still technically going on. You can check that out. There's a bunch of new ship paints, a 400, a 400i, and if I were better prepared, I would have had that stuff for you. Check it out. It's not going. And then we'll be back next week with ISC. We got a sprint report and a special look at a team. Those of you in Evocati will probably be very aware of, but I think many of our backers probably don't even know exists. So we're gonna meet that team, and then we are on the way to 317. Currently on track to release at the end of this quarter, hopefully. It's always the hope. And I'm in the process of moving. We're packing up. Every week I see questions about the state of the set. We are packing up. I am relocating to the United Kingdom. I see questions like, "Oh my God, everybody's moving to the UK," and I'm like, I think it's just me. I don't know about where they're getting everybody from, but I'm pretty sure it's just me at this point. So lots of cool stuff happening on the horizon. Todd, again, thank you so much. I'm going to wrap this up and go back and mute that one part because it's pre-recorded and I can. Talk to you later, everybody. Take care.
Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you, Jared. Listen, man, that was good. Okay, just like the honesty that came out of it, that was good. Specifically, like something as stupid as the coffee vendor, dude. Just, this is what it is. It was a junior dev. We were trying to get them acclimated. Holy crap. Nobody would have cared about the coffee vendor and made any jokes about it because it makes way more sense to do it that way instead of like sensationalize it on a roadmap update, right? It just kind of silly. But who knows? That was the thing that stuck out to me there out of everything, as well as the desync attempt. We'll see what happens with that. That's interesting. It doesn't seem like a perfect fix, that's for sure, because they said that the ships will be jittering a bit as well, which is not great. But at least if you know the way that they're facing, it does make dogfighting a lot more interesting and better. Trying to think, it was a long episode. I think another thing that sticks out is the lack of mention of the Ares, the A2, the 400i, and the Argo Raft not going up for sale in the 3.17 patch. The Quanta thing is very interesting. Something like that we're really going to have to keep our eye on and see what the change, how the prices change, why the prices would fluctuate, and how much they would fluctuate, I think would be really interesting. I assume it's all just back-end simulation and none of us have anything to do with it. The Redeemer as well, yeah. So there's a lot of really valuable ships to players that are not being sold in-game for some reason. I wonder why. So it's kind of screwed up, and the thing that, you know, the negative thing that stuck out to me out of that episode was that is like, oh shit, so Star Citizen is just your funding drive for Squadron 42. I get it, no problem. Keep it up, guys. Good job. You know, keep abusing us for no reason. So yeah, we'll have to see on all those things, but overall, pretty good episode. First SCL I've watched on stream in a very, very long time, because it was the first one that had any value to the things that interest me, which is, the things that end up on our hard drive, not the things that don't. So, cool. Thanks for watching with me, guys, though. I appreciate it.